Good morning, dolls, and welcome to Little Gretchen's Workshop. So today we have a really fun video. We're going to make some lamps and candle holders out of a lot of little leftover broken pieces of jewelry and things, and also some candy dishes. So let's get started. Now, what you have to work with is going to be different from what I have, but that's not a problem. Look and see what you can make with the odds and ends you have. That little white piece that I'm going to use as a lampshade is actually a toothpaste lid. And then I got a couple marbles, just the kind that you buy from the craft store that you put in plants and things. And that's a bead separator. That's the little clear marble. And as I started to look at these pieces, they look like they may make a lamp. So what I did is used one end cap to be the base, one marble to be a portion of the body, the bead separator to be the connector between the two beads. So just watch what I do and see what ideas you can come up with your scraps. So the first thing I did, that piece sitting there is the bead, a bead cap, and that's going to be my base. I used my Gorilla Gel super glue to put a dot there for the marble to sit on. Yeah, I'm getting to the end of that. I do need to make a run to the craft store soon. Okay, I've just put a little bit on there so I can do just a very dab on the bead cap. Okay, and then I just add my marble. And you use whatever type of marble you have. Mine just happened to be clear. And then I put a little bit on the bead separator on the first side. Now be very careful when you're using the gel super glue because it really bonds quickly. It would probably be safer if you use the tweezers in all your applications with the super glue gel. But I put the other marble on the top of the bead cap and the other one on the separator and let those dry. And while those are drying, I went on to start to come up with another idea. I had some other pieces that I considered making something with. Now, that's the lid to a toothpaste top. And so I knew I wanted to use that as a shade. Now, if you haven't seen my other video about trash to treasure accessories, definitely check that out in my playlist. So I began to drill a hole through the top of the toothpaste lid because I knew I was going to use this as a shade. Sorry about the camera, dolls. And one nice thing about the toothpaste lid, there's an indentation, so you're really able to get a good central hole. Now, this particular lamp, I was going to make it with a stick pin, and that stick pin already had a point on it, but I would need another bead to be the body of my lamp. But you'll see in a moment, I'm going to show you the stick pin. It's really nice. It was kind of rigid, and it was the perfect size to go into that hole that I created in the top of the lamp. There it is. And it's got a nice point on it. So I had to be kind of careful with it. I decided to take the point off because I didn't want it to hinder when I began to put it through the base because it was a little bit wider. It had like almost a screw head on it. And so I was playing with the body, ideas for the body, and I found a red bead, which I thought was pretty, and another bead cap. And I just began to assemble it in a way that I thought might look cute and may look like a lamp. And so I began to start assembling. Now, again, I'm using the super glue. It is very close to my fingers. I would not advise you to do this. Definitely use the tweezers, set the item down, and assemble it. Yeah, like I'm doing now. Don't have it in your hands because if the glue gets on your fingers, it bonds really quickly and you'll have a lot of problems. So don't do that. And so I'm just playing with the idea of how high I want the shade to sit and decide how many other beads I'll need in between. And again, I didn't know altogether what I was going to do when I started assembly. I just began to play. I truly believe that's where our creativity comes from, when we free ourselves to just play. Now, things fell apart a couple times, and I just allowed you to see that because I want you to know in the process of creating something, you'll have moments of trial and error, but you don't stop. You may set it aside and come back, but give yourself an opportunity. Don't think that because it doesn't come out just like you want it the first time, that it's not going to work. You may just have to try a different bead or try a different post, or maybe you need to use a toothpick, or maybe you'll need to sand the toothpick down. But give yourself some time to come up with a way to make it work. And finally, I just figured out how to make that particular post work, and it went in so far from one side and just long enough to go in the bottom of the bead cap. So when I realized that that would work, I continued assembly. Now, while that was drying, I decided I would work on another part because I didn't want that to fall apart in the process of be continuing. And so you have to be patient. So give yourself something else to do. So by this time, the beads on the marbles were dry, and so I could continue the assembly of the marble lamp. And so now I'm adding glue to the other side of the bead cap, which is the separator. And then I'm just gently turning it over. Now this would be a time where you might want to have something to measure it so you can make sure it's centered and plumb. I didn't, but it came out all right anyway. I really like this idea as far as the marbles and the lamp. It looked like one of those old-fashioned lamps. I don't even know what you call them, but I always thought they're very pretty. They look like they should be like on a vanity or in a pretty Victorian parlor. So I played around with some other beads to complete the assembly of the lamp. And while I was waiting, I started to play with those green beads. And those look like candle holders. Now those are the remnant pieces from those other Trash to Treasure lamps I made. So now I'm making candle holders with them, using some really small bead caps as the base of those and just centering it. Now I didn't use a post for these. Maybe I could have, but I didn't think it was necessary because they weren't really heavy. And I felt like if I got them in the center of that bead cap, that they would balance. And they did. So now I'm just pushing that aside to allow it to dry. I really think those candlesticks turned out pretty. I'm really excited about decorating with them. Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, this is a lot of fun. So now getting back to that red lamp. Now it's dry enough for me to work on it a little bit more. So I'm trying to fit the lampshade on it, but it's falling down a little bit too low. A lampshade wouldn't sit that low on the body of the lamp. So I need to put something on it to allow the shade to sit up a little bit higher. So now I'm playing with another bead to sit on the inside and considering my finial. I really don't like the way the shade looks. It looks way too white for that brass and the gold. So I'm going to have to think about how to tone down the white color. So I added the top of that stick pin, and that raised it up a little bit so that it won't sit so close to the body of the lamp. And I really like the way that worked out. So I decided to add the gel super glue to lock the top of the stick pin on. And again, be very careful when using the super glue. So after dropping the top of the stick pin a couple times, I got smart and got my tweezers out to help me with applying it. And I finally got it on. It was the right height. And now I'm adding the super glue to the top so I can actually bond the shade to that portion. And that part will be invisible, so you won't see that again. And see? It set it right at the right height. Now I need to allow that to dry before I move forward to add the finial or do any other finishing with that. But I'm very pleased with the way that's turning out as well. So while I was waiting for the lamp to dry, I began to go back and forth with ideas for the finial. I have a gold earring back, which I actually ended using at the end, but I did put another color bead on it and considered just painting it gold, but I did change back to the finial at the end. But I really like the way the lamp turned out. It kind of looks like an old-fashioned just night table lamp. And I am going to tone down that brass also. So here I was adding another little piece to the side to look like it was the switch or the off and on portions. Now keep in mind, these lamps don't work, but they're pretty. There are times you're going to need things in your scenes that just look attractive. They don't actually have a function other than looking pretty. And that's the kind of lamps these are. And after adding the handle to it, yeah, that was really cute. And it was just a broken piece of a loop for a jump ring. Now I added a little chain to the side of this lamp with the marbles to be the pull, and then added like a grommet to a snap to the top of it and try to center it as best I could. And there I have a completed lamp. I really like the way that turned out. That really looks authentic. So let's let that dry. Now that it's dried, I'm considering some other decorating options. I really like that the red lamp is completed. And I do need to do a little bit more work on those candle holders. But I'm kind of feeling like I need a second marble lamp. So I added another bead cap to the other portion of the candle holder. So that'll be the part where the candle actually goes. And I think that really turned out pretty. Now here I'm just giving you a closer view of the red lamp. So we've got a whole lamp made of a toothpaste lid, a bead, and 2 bead caps, and the portion of a stick pin. So just use your imagination and see what you can come up with. Then we have this other lamp here made of 2 marbles, 2 bead caps, and a snap grommet. Come on, dolls. Let's have fun with this. Don't take the fun out of miniatures. Keep the play involved. That's where your imagination is. So here I'm just adding a piece to the side where it will be the on-off switch. And there was another little random piece that I found in the bottom of my broken jewelry jar. So I'm going to just show you here a little portion of the painting. I did a second lamp. I did it off camera, but it was done the same way. And I just took out some pastel colors that I really liked and just began to paint a really freestyle floral motif on one side of the lamp. And I started with one set of shades and just kept going until I was satisfied. So I just took my time and just played around with it and painted 2 little floral designs on each of the lamps. So now I have 2 completed lamps made from some leftover marbles. Now, when I got to this portion, I got done with the 2 marble lamps. I started to stare at the brass on the red lamp. That brass just really bothers me. So I used my rub and buff and a teeny weeny brush and began to tone down that brass look with the antique gold rub and buff. Now after I toned down the brass with the antique gold, I began to paint the shade linen color to make it look a little bit more natural because that white was too stark for a lamp that looked that rich and red. So I went back with the rub and buff on all my little metal portions of all of the lamps to make them look a little bit more antique. And they're turning out really good. I'm really happy with it. And so then I got Rub and Buff happy and began to put the antique gold onto the shade. Now this was on top of the linen colored acrylic paint, and I thought it took really well. After allowing it to dry, I realized there were some portions of the shade that I missed. So I did have to go back and go over those portions, but that's what you have to do with miniatures. You work on them, allow them to dry or sit, and then come back and review them again. This is not something you rush through. Now you see all those white spots or light spots in the shade? I had to go back and take my time and go through each of those very slowly. But in the end, it turned out really beautiful. I'm very proud of these little lamps. Now, while I was working with all these beads and bead caps, I began to see candy dishes. And so I had some other little filigree pieces and I played around with them a little bit. And I realized that to me they look like little candy dishes. So I glued one part of the bead cap to another smaller bead cap to be the body of the candy dish and allowed it to dry. I thought those were cute, but you know I don't like that pewter. They're going to end up getting the rub and buff treatment as well. And there we are. They're all dry, and I have rub and buffed them as well. Isn't that pretty? And then I made a lid. I flipped the other side up and put a little bead on the top to turn it into a complete candy dish. Now these are just some quick, easy one afternoon of miniatures. I hope you dolls look at what you have and see what you can come up with. I sure have enjoyed sharing this with you today. If you're enjoying my videos, definitely let me know in the comments. And also like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you'll be alerted when I upload more video here on Little Gretchen's Workshop and regarding the Room and House Dollhouse. We have a lot of ground to cover, so definitely stay tuned and watching out for my next upload. Also, a special thank you to my subscribers and also those of you all who haven't subscribed but you're watching. I appreciate you as well. I guess now we have to make candles. Thanks so much for watching Little Gretchen's Workshop. Take care now, dolls. Bye-bye.